Hi everyone. For those who have been watching my videos previously, would know my name is Tracy Nieuwenheyzen-Petersen. I am a registered social worker. In my previous introduction about my business, you would know I completed my bachelor's in social work with UNISA and then went on to do my postgrad diploma in addictions care with UCT, and now I have started my own business. I do identify as an entrepreneurial social worker. My business is called Social What Pty Ltd. It is still at the beginning stages, so please share and go and check it out. But what I am here to discuss today is a while ago, my nieces came to me and they were like, you know what you should do? You should start a series of the day in the life of a social worker. And this was a couple of months ago. They came to me with this, and I have been wondering on how to, you know, get into this because a lot of social work is confidential. A lot of building and maintaining those relationships is built on confidentiality. You can't necessarily be discussing a case or posting it on social media without someone trying to figure out who it is or what it is, or someone feeling personal about it. And I was like, you know what? I finally got the idea of doing it in a sense of the milestones of the social work career. So this video is about what I think day one of a social worker is, and that is decision day. The day that you decide I'm going to be a social worker. Um, for a lot of people, it takes a long time for them to realize why they became a social worker or why they even chose the career. I do firmly believe that social work is a calling. If you do find yourself in the field and you see, because there's a lot of frustrations in social work, like it is frustrating, highly stressful environment to work in. But if you go through that and also sometimes you find yourself crying at the end of the day, but you can still not see yourself doing something else. And that is why I say it's calling. Like in my years of experience now, I sat with my husband last night and I said to him, you know what? Like we've been together 11 years, living together 11 years. You probably know me the best right now. If I should say to you, what should I be doing with my life? What would you say? And he spent the whole day with that question and he came up with nothing else but social work, and that tells me that I am on the right path here as well. Even though I'm not formally working for an organization or for government, that I started my own thing is because also with my belief that I was called to be a social worker, I also have a different view of social work. And a lot of people, a lot of social workers may resonate with what I'm about to say, but the environment out there and working in the field of social work, it is emotionally grueling. There's organizational trauma. I always say, and a lot of social workers have said this to me, that social workers treat each other the worst. And you go through so much that the only thing that keeps you going is your passion for the job, for your career, not the actual job or the actual organization. And that is one of the main reasons I stepped away, because I believe that I want to be the change that I see in social work. And I believe that I want to be the change I want to see in the world of work. I was tired of hearing when I am saying my frustrations or sharing my frustrations with people, that they would be like, oh, it's like that everywhere. I was like, I got to a point of either I believe this and I accept it and join everybody else that is depressed in their job and only think about the money. They don't enjoy what they're doing, or I create a piece of the world where it's not like that. And I decided to create a piece of the world that's not like that. Yes, it's gonna take me a while to grow my company, but I believe that is what I'm gonna create. And even though I went out on a leap of it, I left my job, I started my company with nothing. I haven't been this happy in my life ever, probably. So I definitely believe I'm on the right path. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, yeah? Let's go back to me deciding to become a social worker. When I was growing up, I grew up in a home of domestic violence and mental health problems. My father had a substance use disorder. He was an alcoholic. My whole life, he was in the military. My mom had major depressive disorder my whole life. She went through trauma of losing her parents, both her parents, before the age of 5. I believe um, probably some of my family would judge my accuracy, but I also come from a family where the elders don't necessarily talk about everything. So I believe her father passed away when she was 2 and her mom when she was 5. She was in an orphanage for some time until her older sister fostered her. And my dad, on the other hand, he was like the pillar of his family and he had to join the military and was experienced a lot of trauma there as well. Being in the military in the apartheid era, I can only imagine the things you've seen or had to do. It took me a long time to have this view about both of my parents. So, what this led to is both my parents lost one of my brothers before I was born in a bomb explosion while living in the military bases. So that tore a family, a rift in the family. Like I was not a part of any of this. This was before I was even a thought in my family. But I'm just trying to create some background as to the trauma I was born into. And then I have a much older brother. He is 17 years older than me. And then I have a middle brother who's 8 years older than me. So he has an intellectual disability, which makes him mentally younger than what he is physically. So, with my mother's mental health concerns, she spent a lot of time in the psychiatric ward throughout my childhood. My father was only able to be sober the days that he would work for the military. So at a young age, my father retired from the military full time and joined the reserve force. So he would only work 180 days a year, and those would be the only days that he would be sober. So he was never a present father. I think I have like one positive memory of my father where he taught me the song, and even when he taught me that song and that joy that I felt with him, he was drunk to the point that he was holding on to the wall while teaching me that song. So I don't have any recollection of a actual relationship with him, but my mother and I, even though it was challenging with the mental health and things that she would say to me throughout my life, she was my mom and my dad. But a lot of the time, I had to, from the age of 12, step into adult shoes. My mom was not there. I had to do it all. I learned to drive by train. At that age, probably like 10 years old, I could take the train on my own. Um, pay my mom's accounts. I would be traveling by train like with 2,000 rand on me, going to pay my mom's accounts, doing grocery shopping, things like that. I was mocking with my husband the other day how my mom told me to drive the train. Our trains here have like codes, and those are the areas that they're going to. So she would teach me the first two numbers of all the codes, and I knew those are the only trains that I could take to get home. Um, I learned to do grocery shopping by going through aisle by aisle and identifying things that we use in our home and budgeting from there. We'd go through, back then we had very basic phones, but our phone had a calculator, and I would add up everything that I put in the trolley, and so that I ensure I had enough money and I bought the important things. It's also how I taught myself to read. So my older brother was working for the city council at the time. He was not home much by that time. He had his own home. He would be in and out really. But you used to get these, when you would be on standby, they would get these survival packs that had all these canned goods in and things like that. So we always had canned goods in our home, and I would teach myself words from the canned goods and do my homework that way, teach myself to read that way. And I always knew that I wanted to work with people, but for me it wasn't about helping people. um, and I think it took a while for me to get to social work, because obviously with all the trauma filled things in my life, I tended to lean towards the dark side. So I did a lot of research into serial killers and what they did. I read up on them. I went into reading up on profilers. It was things that fascinated me. And I got to the point firstly of saying I want to be a profiler. It's like I did research at the time. It was a very long process, and so being in the environment that I was in growing up, I couldn't take the longest way of studying as well. There's a lot to consider. Then I got to the point of I want to be a brain surgeon, because then you go to your childhood. I want to be the impressive child, because I don't know, like our parents, this we only discovered later on, but our parents wouldn't show their pride in you to you. So, for example, to me, they would brag about my eldest brother and what he achieved and compare me to him and what I was lacking and things like that. But to him, they would do the opposite and talk about me. And that way, we always felt that we weren't worthy, or we weren't, the special child. So I said, okay, brain surgery. Then I saw my mother going through all operations and the struggles with the arthritis, and I was like, nope, that's gonna be orthopedic surgery. I was like, you know what, it's not for me. As much as I could do math in school, I passed and things like that, it was just not for me. And then I ended up applying to university, firstly for social work and law. I got in for both, and I had to make a decision. The time I couldn't go to the university I was accepted to because of financial reasons. There was a space for me at a private university which was financially more accessible at the time, and they only had psychology. And my brother was like, you know what? When you were a child, at some point you wanted to be a child psychologist. Let's just do this. And I did it, but it was still not who I wanted to be. In my first year already, I said, no, it is social work. I want to study social work. And because my brother was the surety of my student loan, I couldn't just make changes without him. As time went on, I couldn't finish my studies. I probably had like 5 modules left. My mom, with her mental issues, had kicked me out at the age of 21. My husband that I had now, we were dating probably like 4 months, and I called and I'm like, I am kicked out, guy. Like, he sent a family member to fetch me, and we found our way from there. I ended up then starting to study social work. But the point of all of this is that I think a lot of us can only be honest about a reason for studying this field later on. For one, it is a definite calling. It's something that always resonated with me, but not for the point of what most people would say, to help people or to make people's lives better or to prevent them from going through what I did. For me, it was because I had gone through so much trauma, as well as secondary trauma, and so many of my family members had gone through trauma based on family members' decisions. I was fascinated by how people make their decisions. And a lot of social work is about, building their plan on what to do next, building their lives, those treatment plans and things. And that's what drew me to social work, is how the human mind works. And because as a child I was in such a dark space, it drew me to serial killers. But for me to really dissect that, it was about, understanding how people could do things to other people and be okay with it, how they choose what they do, and the reasoning behind it. Because, for example, I could never ask my parents why they made the decisions that they made. When it comes to my dad is super old school. He doesn't talk about anything, even till today. If you ask him a question, he'll be like, "No, my child, my health, I can't answer that. We don't talk about that. I spoke to God about it and it's over." Um, when I tried to speak to my mom a lot of the things, a psychiatrist told me that I can't, because she got to a point where whenever something traumatic happens, she would build her own reality. So she believed that she never kicked me out, but I left the home and things like that. So as soon as I would ask her a question that contradicts her reality, she would go into a manic episode. So I could never do that either. So for me to work through trauma and to work through things, I had to learn to understand things. But in essence, if I think back about it, my wanting to understand people's decisions and behavior is also what called me or pulled me towards social work. And sometimes we just have to be honest about what got us there. Sometimes it's a dark place, sometimes it's a dark desire, sometimes it's a dark thought. But a lot of social workers may tell you different reasons. But if you can really dwell into your thought processes and think what brought you here, what called you here, and I will always say, and I am making these videos too. I always am honest with social work students, people wanting to study social work. I'm purely making these videos so that people can also make the right decision. And this is my perspective. There might be other social workers out there that disagree, and I completely respect that. But it's just to give you an entire view of people's different perspectives on what got them here. I wouldn't change my career for the world. Like, I am rather going to change my world for my career. If you understand what I mean, it is a difficult field to be in, not just dealing with the clients, but dealing with the politics, and which is why I stepped away from the politics to just deal with the clients. I made took a big step to do that, but I wouldn't change that for the world. Like, it's not ideal right now in the sense of I'm still building my company, but I am truly happy with my decision, and I wouldn't change my career for anything else. I'm a social worker. I was called to be a social worker, and this is probably the day one of being a social worker is the decision day, and how you get to that decision that makes you a social worker, and that will make you never doubt yourself. I have met social workers that changed their careers, they became teachers, they became something else because it wasn't meant for them. So even if that is how you get to social work by doing something else, you will get there in your way. But that will always be your day one. Day one of being a social worker is decision day. How you get to that decision may look different, may take many turns or U-turns even. But when you get there, you will truly understand your journey or your starting point. And sometimes you have to think back to what your starting point is. I truly had to think back to my starting point in terms of what got me here. Would I change it for anything? Is there anything else I should be doing with my time? But there's not. This is truly who I am supposed to be. It's not the ideal world to be in or environment to be in, but we can control that. We can create the world or the environment that we think it should be. And that is what I truly believe. So continue watching, subscribe, share. I will be sharing many more milestones of being a social worker or life in a social worker, and things that I think that stands out, events that happens in your career that stands out in this journey. So until next time, thank you for watching.